Well, it's because I forgot the damn thing.
How's it look? Let me see. What?
It's a skew. I forgot.
No. But I'm saying, why does the picture looks
So,
okay,
yeah,
but
I
you're
know.
saying it looks. Well,
It
we'll just
looks,
do it.
it
Who the
looks
fuck cares? Let it go.
more blurry than it normally does.
Well, let it go, and I'll see it online, and maybe it's just in that monitor.
It could just be in that.
Yeah. So we'll take a look, and if it's something wrong, we could figure it out. That means just something.
Well, we're back, so that's.
We're live. Oh, I gotta start sharing. I've been forgetting.
You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean,
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance. Thursday, December 13th. We're live for the next 3 hours. I'm Dean Obeidallah, hoping to be your MBFF. I'm on Twitter at Dean Obeidallah. Facebook.com, we're back to live streaming. Hopefully it's working as clearly as it has in the past, but Facebook.com/Dean of Radio if you want to watch the monologue, or we have guests in studio, or back up and live, or drop me an email, dean@deanofradio.com. And all I can say is so many witches, so little time. So many witches, so little time. But first, Stephen Colbert last night on Michael Cohen's prison sentence. Here's clip number 1, please. Boom. And then here was a funny joke by Colbert about the Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Trump meeting and Trump's response. Here's clip number 2. Oh my God. And Trump tweeted today, Mexico will pay for the wall. Well, then good, we're done. You don't have to ask the American taxpayers for even a penny. Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Hope they'll send you a check for $5 billion. And we're done with it, so don't bring it up to us again. Because he claims somehow in NAFTA too that they're going to pay for it. Well, I haven't seen that in the writing, that that's part of the deal, that Mexico is going to pay billions of dollars towards Trump's wall. So it's not there. It's just a lie. But I'd be so happy. We're done. You got your money from Mexico. We don't have to even debate it. The government will stay open December 21st. Of course it won't. So let's talk about so many witches, so little time, and what is going on in the world of criminality. Because Donald Trump and his minions are out there with a new defense. And I want to address it because there's a legal basis for it. There actually is. And people might go like, oh, this is not real. No, actually, he's articulating a defense. We're going to destroy why it doesn't apply to him, but I want people to know about the legal defense that he is citing in his tweets that actually is relevant. Now, first of all, we had one of his defenders, former White House staffer Mark Short, on CNN today saying, he's a celebrity. He doesn't know about campaign finance laws. Let's first destroy this one. Here's clip number 3. Because Trump was just a celebrity in 2016, October, and didn't know he was violating campaign finance laws. That's just stupidity. That means nothing. But here is what Donald Trump said on Twitter today, and his other people on Fox News are citing this. He tweeted today, Trump, I never directed Michael Cohen to break the law. He was a lawyer, and he's supposed to know the law. And goes on to say he's relying on Michael Cohen. And you might go, what does that matter? Is that really relevant to anything? Yes, there's actually a defense called the advice of counsel defense. The advice of counsel defense. Now, it does not apply in cases like we all know the law, like, oh, my lawyer didn't tell me shooting Joe in the back of the head was a crime. No, that's not going to win the day. But there's certain conditions that you can say you are not criminally responsible because you didn't have the mental intent to commit a crime because you are relying on your lawyer. And to do that, there are 3 conditions. One, you have to fully disclose all material facts to the attorney before seeking advice. Second, you actually rely on the counsel's advice. And third, and here's the biggest one, in good faith, you have to believe the actions were legal. So that's why there's no good faith basis to say, hey, I didn't know I couldn't stab someone. My lawyer didn't tell me that. Where this good faith defense actually comes up is in regulatory matters with corporations. And the CEO relies on counsel, who's supposed to be an expert in an area. And he or she asks, can I do this? And the lawyer says yes. It turns out not only is it a regulatory violation, but it's something that exposes the CEO or other executives to personal criminal liability. And they will cite that. It doesn't work often. Martin Shkreli, a member of the Pharma Boy, he used it. He's in jail right now for 7 years. It's a hard defense, but it is a defense. So his lawyers are telling him to articulate that. And little by little on Fox News, they're starting to articulate this. Here, let's destroy the good faith basis, because that's why this defense doesn't work. And where it would work, folks, is if somebody never made a campaign contribution, knew nothing about Federal Election Commission laws, did not understand about reporting requirements of our legal system that deal with campaign contributions or lobbying, that person says, I'm going to run for office. I've been a hardworking person. I worked in, let's say, a steel mill and all my life, but I'm going to run for Congress right now. And they ask a lawyer who says, I'm an expert in Federal Election Commission laws. And they tell them, hey, you can do this. And they rely on them. That's a pretty good defense. But that's not who Donald Trump is. Why? Because Donald Trump already had 2 run-ins. Once with the FEC and once with New York State Lobbying Commission, where he violated reporting requirements. In the second one, and had to pay a record fine. And so let's go through a little bit about this so that everyone knows why this defense does not apply to Donald Trump, because he is actually articulating a legal defense on Twitter, and so are some of his people on TV. And it's interesting, on cable news, even the great lawyers who are on are not engaging it. I don't think you ignore it. I think we explain it so we're all on the same page. We all know why it's BS. So if someone brings it up to you, you can say, that doesn't apply here. And they probably don't know the advice of counsel defense either. It's not like a common defense, believe me. It's rare. Here are the situation with Donald Trump. First of all, Donald Trump in 2011 actually seriously considered running for president. He said he was testing the waters. He went to Iowa to meet with people. What happened is a private citizen filed a Federal Election Commission complaint against Trump for this. You want to know who else was a defendant in this Federal Election Commission complaint? Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen and Donald Trump were both defendants in a Federal Election Commission hearing that went on for almost 2 years, that Donald Trump had to hire lawyers to represent him in. And in that, the allegations were he was using money from his corporation to help test the waters, and that is a violation of our Federal Election Commission laws. There's no doubt about it. That's definitely a violation. But the question was, does it apply to Donald Trump? And they had hearings, they had the lawyers involved for Donald Trump, and they ultimately determined it was deadlocked. The FEC commissioners were deadlocked on if it was a violation or not. And the bottom line is they said since he never became a formal candidate, it didn't trigger these testing the water provisions. This is a little interesting note. If you want to know who was the one commissioner who was vice chair of the Federal Election Commission in this decision that ruled in the favor of Donald Trump in 2013, his name might sound familiar. It's Don McGahn. Don McGahn is now White House counsel. That's how Don McGahn got his job. He found for Donald Trump in 2013. Trump always remembered him. That's how he gets his job in 2016. 2017 as White House counsel, and he's leaving now. That's the first case. So while Donald Trump was not fine there, it was deadlocked. He had to hire legal counsel who were involved. And Donald Trump got a sense from then on, no matter what, that it's intricate details, the Federal Election Commission laws. They're not black and they're not simple. They are hard. They are challenging. And he found out about it that way. Beyond that, Donald Trump from 1989 to 2015 has made donations of $1.8 million to candidates for office. And he did not violate the Federal Election Commission laws when making those contributions, because he understood through his lawyers or counselors that there are limits to how much money you can give. For a federal election, you can only give $2,700, neither the primary and the general, or both together. You can do up to $5,400. That's it. He didn't violate those laws because he asked somebody and understood there are limits to what you can give. So first of all, he had the FEC run-in. Then he's been donating money all these years. So he's a very sophisticated, experienced campaign donor. And then the big one, in 2000. Let me tell you a little story here about Donald Trump, the scumbag that he is, that he's long been a scumbag. In 2000, the year 2000, Donald Trump wanted to prevent Native Americans from being able to legalize gambling in New York in a place called the Catskills. If you're not from the New York, New Jersey area, you won't know. It's slightly upstate. The Native Americans wanted to open up casinos there. At the time, Donald Trump owned his casinos in Atlantic City. Donald Trump didn't want competition. So what did he do? He spent nearly $500,000 to lobby through ads, through talking to elected officials, not to allow the Native Americans to have these casinos. That is legally allowable per New York state law as long as you tell people and you report these things. Anytime it's over a $2,000 payment. And he did for a lot of them, but not for all of them. What didn't he report? Well, let me explain how he did this, and it might sound slightly familiar. He secretly financed a shell company called the New York Institute for Law and Society that ran negative ads about Native Americans that opposed gambling. And the ads had all the racism of Donald Trump that we've known and come to despise. In the ads, he warned the Mohawk Native American tribe, that was the tribe who wanted these casinos. He said they're going to bring drug dealers and organized crime to the Catskills. Obviously, he's not in the ads. No one knows he's involved in funding these ads. And the ads feature a picture of cocaine lines and drug needles and said alleged abuses by this tribe. And it has the closing line, are these the neighbors we want? So Donald Trump has no problem with his legal lobbying. He's reporting all of that. But to do this racist, bigoted ad, he forms a shell company through a lawyer named Curtis Horridge, who's an associate of Roger Stone. This has been Donald Trump's MO for a long time. They form a shell company. He funnels money to the shell company to do the dirty work, and doesn't report it and undermines transparency. Well, in this case, they got caught. The New York State Lobbying Commission found that Trump had, quote, failed to disclose to the State Lobbying Commission that he had secretly financed newspaper advertisements opposing casino gambling in the Catskills. They could have referred the case for criminal prosecution. We never would have had Donald Trump as president if they had done that. But they chose not to because Donald Trump offered to pay a record fine that him and Roger Stone were fined, as well as the New York Institute for Law and Society, which again was a fake campaign, a fake company. It was a real incorporated company, but it was a shell company. By shell company, you don't know, it simply means it's not really a running business. It's just that you file the paperwork, you have a corporation, and then you use this company name to do things, but it's not really operating. There's no employees, there's no products or inventory or anything. That's what he did. He also had to spend $50,000 on ads apologizing for his lying about the Native Americans that ran on TV networks in upstate New York at the time in 2000. Donald Trump forming shell companies with his associate to funnel money and to avoid transparency so the American public does not know what he's doing. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Oh yeah, that's exactly what he did now. This is exactly what he's done now with his hush money. Michael Cohen formed 2 different shell companies to pay off Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels through AMI, the National Enquirer publisher. And while the lobbying is not a campaign like a candidate, it's the same, the essence is the same. The laws of lobbying laws and Federal Election Commission laws have something in common. That word is transparency. Transparency. They're both predicated on the idea that you, the American public, we should know when someone's funding a candidate running for office and how that candidate's spending their money. The same thing with lobbying. We should know who's behind lobbying campaigns so we can make decisions on are they credible or not. Donald Trump undermined both in this case. The lobbying one, he got fined, and now we are here with what's going on with Donald Trump and these shell companies. And here is Judge Napolitano, who I've grown to actually love now, I think, at this point, on Fox and Friends, not with Shep Smith, actually Trump watching. And this is remarkable, what's going on here. Here is Trump watching. You know he's watching. That's why he tweeted like crazy afterwards. Judge Napolitano debunking the defenses by the Fox and Friends. Here's clip number 4. That wasn't me coughing. That was the guy on that was Napolitano coughing. I'm not kidding. It wasn't me coughing. That was the guy in the audio coughing. Sorry. So, ladies and gentlemen of this radio jury, let me be completely honest. As a lawyer, I've always said I will not play games with legal things. I will tell you exactly what the issue is, what the law is, and you decide. And here's your opportunity to tell me what you think. Because ultimately a jury might be called to decide on this with Donald Trump. And it has to be shown Donald Trump was in a conspiracy with Michael Cohen, that they knew it was a crime, and that Donald Trump was involved in furthering that crime by doing some step in furtherance of that. Now, he paid the money, so that's all there. The question is, did he know or did he not know? And Donald Trump's defense now, you heard Fox and Friends, and Napolitano did a great job pushing back. Sort of defense is, he doesn't know anything, he's a celebrity, or second, this had nothing to do with the campaign. He was just paying these women off. He wasn't trying to hide something like that. it was damage control for his family. If you believe those, he might not get convicted. But here are the other facts. First of all, in the jury, in a trial of Donald Trump, you're going to hear about his run-in with the FEC in 2011, and that he understood the Federal Election Commission has very intricate rules, and that he was almost fine then. That wasn't criminal, that was civil, but he was almost fine then. It was a deadlock decision. You're also going to hear, if you're on the jury, about in 2000, Donald Trump's lobbying violation of the law, where he formed a shell company through Roger Stone formed it for him, and then he funded the entire shell company to run ads to undermine the transparency of the lobbying laws. And then when we get flash forward to the actual facts of this case, what you're going to hear is this, very simply. Donald Trump's lawyer, not a low-level guy, as Donald Trump said today, Michael Cohen has been executive vice president of Trump Organizations 2007. Since 2007, executive vice president and general counsel. Michael Cohen formed 2 shell companies to funnel money to 2 women. The second shell company was formed in October of 2016, right before the election day. That last payment was made on October 27th, 10 days before the election. The jury will have to decide, is that unconnected? Was that just damage control for his family? Or was that because of this campaign issue, which makes it a campaign contribution and intentional violation of Federal Election Commission laws? And if it was just damage control, and if Donald Trump was not trying to hide something, and there was no criminal intent, I would ask you, if you're on the jury, then why did Donald Trump form 2 shell companies to pay these women? Why didn't he just wire the money directly to them? Or why didn't he just give Michael Cohen a check and have Michael Cohen give a check then, reimburse it that way? If it was not about hiding anything, you don't need to form a corporation. You can just pay the women. And if you don't want to do it directly because your wife might find out, I don't know how in this case Melania would, you could have given the money to your lawyer. He puts in a trust account, then he cuts a check and gives it to them. They didn't. They formed a third entity, a separate shell company. And add to that, the National Enquirer. Yesterday we learned, as part of the agreement, AMI, the publisher, admitted it made a $150,000 payment in concert with Trump's campaign, quote, in order to ensure that the women did not publicize damaging allegations about the candidate before the 2016 election. And finally, if this was an above-board damage control thing where Donald Trump didn't know he was violating the law, had no clue there was any illegality involved, and it was just a good faith payment to these young ladies he had affairs with, he just wanted to give them money because they needed help or didn't want to talk about it, then why, as the Southern District of New York, in their sentencing memo, point out that the Trump Organization got these false invoices from Michael Cohen where he claimed the money was a retainer agreement when it was not. It was reimbursement of hush money. And then, as the prosecutors put in writing, so it's got to be corroborated, the Trump Organization, quote, then falsely accounted for these payments as legal expenses. In fact, no such retainer agreement existed, and these payments were not legal expenses. Why go through all this if you're not trying to hide things from the American public? Why go through all this if you're not trying to keep from the American people what you're doing? Why go through all this if you're not worried there's criminality involved? If you listen to this and you think that Donald Trump perhaps, and be honest, be nonpartisan here, if a Democratic president had done this, but you heard these other facts, what would your opinion be? If a Democratic president had turned out to pay 2 women hush money in the weeks before the campaign, would you think that person should be convicted of a crime for that or removed from office? Because that's what we're getting to here. Now, I think ultimately there will be more charges against Donald Trump than just this. Sadly, in the White House right now is a criminal, a man with a long history of violating the law. And he's finally gotten caught because he never had to deal with someone like Robert Mueller. So that's where we are, my friends. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen of this radio audience jury? Is what you heard here, would that make you say, be nonpartisan? I know we hate Trump. In a nonpartisan way, where you go, you know what? All this cover-up, all these games, a shell company, fake invoices, the Trump Corporation itself falsely saying these are legal expenses when they're not, it is clearly a cover-up. Or was this all damage control for his wife and he's a celebrity and has no idea what's going on? He's a happy-go-lucky Donald Trump. Even though in 2000 he did the same thing with lobbying. You tell me, 866-997-4748. You're my guest. We have a whole hour if you're my guest. We'll talk about some other topics as well. Then we have Matt Taibbi coming up in an hour from now at 7:30 Eastern Time. You're not going to want to miss that. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. Love to talk to you about this right here.
Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go
Very good.
anywhere.
Doing
This is
excellent.
the Dino